Today's video, we're going to talk about the big mistake that people are making with Google My Business and Google Business Profile, which is what Google My Business is called now. The big mistake they're basically making with running a Google My Business or Google Business Profile while also running PPC campaigns. Specifically Google Ads. So if you're running Google Ads now and you got people that you're servicing locally, you absolutely should be using the location extensions in your account, which are tied to your Google Business Profile or your Google My Business, which, by the way, gets you to show up on the map that a lot of good leads come from in your market. And if you're not there, there's a whole bunch more leads you're going to be able to get from your market through your PPC ads, your Google ads, if you were just to run it. But the big problem, so to say, that people are making as they're running Google ads, and even if they are doing Google location extensions or Google location ad asset, as they call it now, it's not called ad extensions anymore, technically as well. Love how, by the way, how Google just keeps changing the names of these things all the time. So if I make a video about one thing and Google changes the name, nobody can find the advice anymore. But the big problem that people are making is having to do with tracking. And everything, as I mentioned many times on this channel, is about tracking if you want the big time results running PPC for your company. Half of the value of running your ads comes from tracking your results and knowing which part of your investment's working so you can double down on it, and double down on it by taking budget away from parts of your account that's doing less than average to reallocate it to doing the parts of your account that's doing above average. And with no awareness, no call tracking, no contact form tracking, the algorithm that Google has, as well as Facebook or any place, these other main platforms to run PPC ads, without their algorithm having data about what worked and what did not work for you, what got a sale, what did not get a sale, what you should be actually doing, or at the very least, giving information about who called or didn't call, or who filled out the form, who didn't fill out the form, there's no way for the algorithm to get you more customers. And you could be stuck here, or you could just, instead of being stuck here, if you get the quality conversion data going into your account will go up. And the longer you run your ads, the more results you get. In that, more value actually comes from the data you're building up in your account than as does the actual ad itself that you're running at any given time. Given the results will consistently get better if you have the data flowing in. So as it ties to these location extensions or location ad assets that are tied to your Google Ads campaign, the phone calls that are generated from your location extension / ad asset will not be tracked unless you have a special setting set up in your Google Business Profile / Google My Business account to track those phone calls that come in when people see your phone number on the maps under your sponsored listing there. Or as some people call it, Google Maps ads, if you will. Some people call it that. Basically, on the map, you can show up organically just like you can on Google, but then there's the sponsored listing you can get through running Google Ads on the map as well. If your sponsored listing shows up there, which you get done through running location extensions through your Google Ads account, you will not be able to track those phone calls that occur through that sponsored listing on the map that you're running through your Google Ads unless you have a ads phone number added to your Google My Business or Google Business Profile itself to track those phone calls. And again, without tracking the phone calls, it's not just about conversion tracking, is not about just knowing if your ads are working or not, because there's better ways to even know if your return is there or not than just looking at your conversion tracking. It's about feeding the algorithm the data about what works so they can give you more and more of it. And that's where the big dollars come from. So you want to be able to track also the phone calls that occur through your sponsored map listing. And that's specifically done by opening up your Google My Business Profile or Google My Business account, if you want to call it that. This is the way it was always called. And adding a tracking number in there that you can set up through your CallRail or other call tracking provider in your account. I prefer CallRail. That's what we use for all our clients. And then once you've done that, all the calls that come from your sponsored listing on your map, which actually will occur on 2 different places, on Google, on the map itself via Google Maps, will feed into your call tracking account, CallRail account, whatever you're using for call tracking, and then that passes back to Google Ads, and then Google Ads algorithm that gets you the more results like I was talking about actually will know when they got you a phone call or not from that Maps listing, because when they get you a phone call and they start getting that data and they realize that your ad listing is getting a higher rate of calls than somebody else's map listing for whatever reason, whether that's your company name sounds more attractive, your ad itself that shows on the map listing, which they don't show a full ad there, but what they're showing in general is more appealing to the consumer, Google and their algorithm will want to show your map listing more, which will give you more and more of a share of the total times that the map listing that shows up there on the map is your listing itself. So you're actually priming the pump on a self-perpetuating feedback loop that Google has, where one call turns into another and turns into another and another and another. And now you're making a ton of money from these map listings because you fed in the right data to your Google Ads account as to whether a person called or not. And without it, whatever you get in the beginning is all you're going to basically get, and that's it. Or even worse, your competition doing the tracking of their calls from their sponsored map listing, Google getting that positive data from them, with them not knowing what yours is doing and knowing what the other guy is doing and also doing okay, they may just send all the calls to them and now you're not even getting any more calls. So you could be worse than nothing by not having your tracking. You might actually go from a little bit of results to 0 because you never tracked your calls coming in from this sponsored map listing. So if you don't already do phone call tracking of the calls that you have in your Google My Business or Google Business profile now, which by the way, you should track those in general that are coming from your Google Business profile listing or map 3-pack listing or whatever you want to call that. There's multiple names for it really. So mainly for the reason that if something's broken in your business, there'll be a day where you haven't had calls for 3-4 days straight and you think something's broken. It's nice to be able to go into Google Analytics, go into your call tracking provider, look at the calls, and of the calls you're not getting anymore, what is being able to drill it down? Is it the Google My Business that's down? Is it the Google Ads that's down? Is it the Google Organic that's down? And then be able to do something versus just sit on your ass and say, I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to do, and sit there and start yelling at your employees to fix it when you could have just had all this data set up to be collected in the first place, and when something does occur, you know exactly where to go to start plugging the hole. As a side note, by the way, so there's actually 2 listings on the Google My Business or Google My Business or Google Business profile listing. There's the organic calls and then there's the ad calls. And the organic calls, you want to track those with a separate tracking number, and you want to track the ad calls with a separate tracking number. For the organic calls, by the way, this is an aside. I know this isn't an organic PPC channel, or organic, SEO or related channel, but when you're doing the call tracking of the organic calls you get from your Google My Business profile, if you have you want to use a tracking number, make sure that tracking number is the same tracking number you have in like Yelp, Yahoo Maps, Bing Maps, so that you have that NAP consistency where your number's consistent throughout the web. Because obviously that's partially a factor in deciding how high you show up in that 3-pack or if you show up in that 3-pack at all. Which, by the way, lately in 2023 and beyond, it's a very little factor. Back in the day that mattered a lot, this NAP consistency. Anymore, it's like 10% of the ranking factor. If you want to know what most of the ranking factor is now, it's the number of reviews and the review score that you have, and more specifically, the keywords that are within the reviews that your customers have given you. So if you have a towing company and somebody has wrote, I love this towing 24/7 towing service, that keyword will probably rank, if somebody types that, you will probably rank in the 3-pack for that keyword because somebody used that keyword in their review. So obviously I'm not advocating that you are trying to optimize for this, by which the only way you would do it technically is leaving yourself fake reviews. But if you get as many reviews as you can, even though it sounds like or looks like you have enough reviews already, just try to get as many as you freaking possibly can by setting up an actual system to maximize get the maximum amount of reviews per customer you have. The chances that they use a keyword that you haven't ranked in the 3-pack for yet, you don't have a chance, you don't have a whack at it if you don't have a review. So naturally, and some people I've seen actually say, when you leave the review, can you use this keyword? And you'll rank for that keyword in the 3-pack then. Just as a side note. Anyway, but having the tracking of the organic calls on your Google business profile is way less important than tracking of the phone calls from your sponsor listing / Google Map ads itself. And Google Map ads / sponsored listings are in 2 places specifically. First of all is in the 3-pack itself that shows up on google.com in your space. Obviously, as you know, in 3-pack, there's 3 different companies listed. There's the map, and then on the map, there's pins for each of the 3 locations that are listed on the left-hand side, listing the businesses that are on that map. And so the first listing usually, we'll say not always, but if there is a sponsored listing or Google Map ad, it's on that first listing and it'll say sponsored next to it. Used to say ad, now it's saying sponsored mainly. And if you have your Google Ads set up with the location extension, which forces you to link your Google Ads to your Google business profile in order to facilitate this, you'll be on that top spot of the maps listing way more times than if otherwise than if you were hoping and wishing that you show up just there organically. But the second place you could actually show up if you have that link between your Google Ads and your Google business profile is on the map itself. So in other words, from the 3-pack, if you click on the map, it takes you to Google Maps, and then on the left-hand side, there's like 10 different, actually I think there's 20 businesses listed on the left-hand side, and then there's the map, and then pins on the map again. And so with that though, it's the same kind of thing. Your listing is on the very top if you have if you're running the location extension in Google Ads, so it'll say sponsored, it'll list you at the very top of the list on the left side. So of the people that are looking on the map, which there's a lot of purchase intent there, that's like the best type of lead you can get is the map. If you are ranked organically on the map already, you know what I'm talking about. Those leads are fucking cherry. You want as many of those as you can. They're better than even the leads that you get off of the PPC ads. And the map listing just will make sure you get more of them, almost basically guaranteed. So you for sure want to do that. Now, like I said, you're showing up there, you'll get some more leads for sure. But if you want to get the most leads you could get, make sure you have to make sure to set up your tracking. So when somebody calls off of this listing, if they call, sometimes some of you guys are doing brick and mortar and you want people to just go and drive to you. If they're going to call though, you want to be able to pick that information up so you can send it back to Google Ads so they know when that you got a call, so they can use that information to try to show you more, and specifically where it should show you specifically where you get more calls than the other people get calls. Because then they know they want to show you more of those spots because they want their users who use the maps to get a good experience. Whatever generates the highest rate of calls is whatever they want to show more of, because that you come to Google Maps to call. So why would they want to show somebody who's not generating the call for the user at the rate somebody else is? Because that measures satisfaction level. And if people are satisfied, they come back to click on maps in the future, and creates an addictiveness to repetitiveness or repeat customer to the map itself. Anyway, as far as that tracking goes, inside your Google business profile, there's a spot where you put your phone number, which you could have as a separate tracking number that you set up to track the organic calls, as I mentioned before. And then there'll be a spot that's called the ads phone number, where you're going to put a second tracking number, not the same tracking number that you're going to track organic calls with, but a separate tracking number, which, by the way, I use the same number as I use as my call extension in my Google Ads account for this, for the most part, because all I care is if I get a call from an ad extension, I know how many I got. If you wanted to, you could do a separate number just for the ads phone number if you wanted to. For the most part, it wouldn't really help you to know how many ads phone numbers or Google Map ad phone number calls you got to distinguish that from your ad extension phone calls, because you can't really act on it anyway. There's no way to optimize a sponsored listing on the map. Google's algorithm decides how much you're shown based upon how the rate in which people are calling, like I was explaining before. But anyway, you go into CallRail and you set yourself up one way or another a separate tracking number to put it in that ads phone number spot, and then from now on your sponsored listing there on the map is going to show that tracking number that you set up through your call tracking provider to track those calls. And of those calls, you're going to feed that data from your call tracking provider back to Google Ads and set up a conversion goal for it so that you could track, of course, how many calls you got. So with that said, we use CallRail. We're going to be able to set up a direct integration from CallRail to Google Ads. So when somebody calls this phone number from this sponsored listing, it'll actually feed that data back into our ad account under the phone call conversion itself. It won't be set up as a separate goal per se to track these map listing calls. It'll just show up under the phone goal by itself. In other words, all your calls from your ad extension calls, including the sponsored listing call, will be grouped together with calls from your website, because you always want to track calls from your website too. But then all of those calls from the ad extension, maps, sponsored maps listing, and calls from your website itself get sent to Google, and it's under one conversion called a phone conversion, which that phone conversion just appears automatically in your Google Ads account when you set up the CallRail to Google Ads integration that CallRail provides. And so then effectively, if somebody calls for that sponsored listing, because you have your tracking number there under the ads phone number blank in the Google Business profile that you have, it'll show up under that phone goal in Google Ads. And then Google Ads can use that information to decide if they want to show you again in that same spot where you got the call before, which they would naturally try again and say, well, it looks like people are satisfied when we show this guy's listing, let's show it again. Oh, well, we have positive confirmation we were right about what we thought would happen, and let's show it again. And then the more time that you've run your ads with the location extension on so that you have the sponsored listing show up on the map, and assuming you're getting a good amount of calls because people like what they see in your business name or what have you, what shows on the sponsored listing, the more calls you will get from the maps and the more sponsored listing impressions you will get. So if you don't have the set up a separate tracking number in CallRail, which I know you might be using another call tracking provider. I can only speak on mainly CallRail in terms of the setup of this, because that's what we use 99% of the time for clients. But if you were to not use any kind of special call tracking number in CallRail to set up, and then didn't take that call tracking number you set up in CallRail or your call tracking provider under ads phone number, basically Google, if somebody clicks on the phone number on your sponsored map listing on their mobile device, it will show up under calls from ads in your conversion menu on your Google Ads account. But if they're not on a mobile device and they just call from that maps listing, it won't pick up the conversion at all. So effectively, you might only be getting half or even less of the calls you get from the sponsored map listing counted by only relying on Google's own system to track the phone calls that come from the listing itself. So for that reason, that's exactly why you want to set up your own call tracking provider or call tracking number and put it in the ads phone number spot in the Google My Business profile that you have to get way more calls than or get as many calls from the sponsored listing here that are as good as gold as you can. And not just tracking if they, on a mobile device, click on the number, but you're tracking if they call that number in general. So as far as the results you're going to get from this, in addition to what you're going to have otherwise, I could assure you, you're going to get at least twice as many of these sponsored listing map calls by doing what I'm telling you here, to set up a separate tracking number to track it in CallRail using a CallRail account, and then piping those phone calls into Google Ads, so the Google Ads algorithm, ad serving algorithm, decides who gets shown and when and how many times. They have all that information about what's worked and what's not worked in the past. And because this is such an obscure thing that people don't even know about, this ads phone number thing, you'll probably be the only one in your space actually doing it. So Google, and that's why you're going to get more than double the calls from your sponsored map listing by getting shown more and more and more, because Google has the most certainty about how your ad performs versus your competition's. Now the caveat is, if you have a really dumb business name like Cheap Ted's Moving and nobody likes that name, nobody's going to call, and then all that's going to do is, this tracking system is going to do, is facilitate the process of Google figuring out that your site and your business name sucks, and nobody wants to call because your business name sounds off-putting, and you're actually going to go from where you're at by default to 0, versus the other way, going from where you're at to 2, 3, 4 times as many calls from the sponsored map listing. So it could go technically either way. You could actually hurt yourself by doing this tracking, or you could greatly help yourself. But ultimately, most of the time you're going to be helped, and the reason for that is the ad serving algorithm that Google Ads has that decides whose ad gets shown and when, because there's different ads getting cycled out, what they're constantly testing. They know nobody is going to appeal to all people at all times. What they do know is certain people will appeal to certain types of people on a consistent basis, and their goal of running their ad serving algorithm is to figure out which ads appeal to what types of people and when, and so that they can only show those ads in those specific times and for those specific people that normally do, respond well to that type of, or that specific ad in that specific company. So through advertising and having your tracking set up, they find out those situations where your ad does well, and they run it there, and they don't waste your money advertising in places where your ad doesn't do well. And so even if you have a business name like Cheap Ted's Moving, there's some people who want cheap services. They don't care about quality, they want cheap. So chances are when they show your sponsored map listing for anybody that types in the word cheap in with the keyword, it'll perform better than the competition, and then they'll get that information and then really double, triple down on anything with the word cheap in it to make sure you're shown versus somebody else in those exact situations. So overall, you may go down, be shown less on a lot of keywords, but on certain keywords you could be shown a lot more. So it all kind of just depends on your market fit of what you're offering and what the market genuinely wants. That's what Google's ultimately going to find out for you. And which customers in your market like to do business with you, they will find them. If nobody wants to do business with you because your business name there looks weird, or you have bad reviews is another way that you would get somebody wouldn't want to do business with you off of a sponsored map listing, deciding to click to call somebody else, or click to somebody else's website to check them out more. Ultimately, the tracking is just going to help you find the customers that you ought to be doing business with. So you might actually end up with less calls, but the calls you're getting are actually converting at a high rate, so you're actually paying less per call on the few calls that you have left. That could be one outcome of all of this process of the tracking being set up. Ultimately, you should always expect, with your tracking set up this way, by the way, that your cost per call is going to come down, because they're weeding out the places that people don't respond to your ad at a higher rate for you automatically, particularly as you have target CPA or maximize conversions bidding strategy set up. to get you conversions at a certain cost per conversion that you're looking for. They'll just weed out the placements that don't work. Or if you have manual bidding, it won't necessarily do that, or at least to do that to such a high degree. If you're at a place that nobody calls your listing, even if you have manual bidding and you bid a lot, they'll eventually just not show it anyway because they don't want to piss off their users. So anyway, there's some different stuff going on as far as how Google uses this information and what the outcome of it's going to be. Most of you guys that set up this tracking, I'd say 80+% of you guys are actually to get more calls, not less, from having the sponsored maps listing show up with a tracking number that you set up through your call tracking provider. So you should do it. In the few situations where you lose calls, well, that's just a bet that I would make and take anyway. In business, you're always looking for ways to make small bets and have big wins. Because if you make enough of those bets, you'll end up growing your company. This is a bet where you could double or triple the amount of calls you're getting from one particular source that's got a really high quality source of phone calls for your business, but while risking very little. Or if you want to say it's not really little, because you might end up with less calls forever from this maps listing, but you may be risking, you'll probably not get 0 calls, you'll get maybe half as many calls from that map listing as you had, but you also could get triple. And so you want to risk half to get triple? Well, I would do that. Anyway, I think I explained enough as different scenarios of what the outcome from this should be. Average person's going to probably at least double their calls by having the tracking number set up and ads phone number, specifically because your competitors are not going to have it set up. But it won't happen overnight. You're not going to hook this thing up and then tomorrow you're going to wake up, you got twice as many calls from this ad extension. Which, by the way, you could go into the not ad extensions, ad assets as they're called now, as I mentioned before. You can go into your ad asset reporting in Google Ads and see how many more calls you're getting after you've done this. But it's going to take months, and it depends on your level of ad spend, how long it will take, but it will generally take months for Google's algorithm to use the data to your advantage, finding places where you're doing good, and then double, triple, quadruple, 5x on them that are working better than, or just working well in general. And then them knowing how to run your ads better than your competition's, because they're not going to have this tracking mechanism set up. They just end up just choosing to run your ads more in those particular spots where you're doing at least okay. So just know, basically, it'll take a few thousand clicks probably to get Google to really understand where they should double, triple, quadruple you down on these sponsored map listings for you. What keywords, what types of people. And ultimately you'll hit a plateau with it at some point, but what you should expect is it should consistently get you more and more calls, the more and more time and clicks you've gotten since you put this tracking mechanism in place for your business. Okay? So with that said, I'll wrap it up with that. Hopefully that makes sense. It will make you a lot of money. If you like this video, I have a lot of other videos on this channel about other PPC money-making strategies. This is just one of hundreds of strategies that we have that we know actively work, and things that will get you more results with Google Ads, Facebook Ads, and so forth, as I manage about 40 different PPC accounts at any given time and actively strategize those accounts myself at our agency. And so with that, I'm giving you on a silver platter on this channel exactly what's working, what's not, what to stay away from. So in terms of wanting to really learn how to do PPC, this is the channel you want to subscribe to for no BS information on how to make money with PPC ads. Not just theory, but actual advice you can use. If you also like the video itself, I'd appreciate it if you would give it a like. And with that, if you like the channel, you also will love the blog that I have at guaranteeppc.com/blog, where I've got personal writing of strategies where I go more step by step on different things that we do to get our clients guaranteed results on their PPC campaigns, because that's what we do at our agency at Guaranteed PPC. So if you want to learn how, learn from the best, so to say, on how to actually beat your competition, doing what you're doing and be able to make the money that your top guys are making in your space, these strategies are going to be able to beat the people that are in your space, because what we're doing here goes beyond what 99.9% of people are doing with their ads actively. So you may also want to check that out. With all that said, if you have any questions about this particular video as well, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a comment on this channel, usually within a couple days. If you have any other questions about PPC, feel free to leave me a comment. I'd be happy to help as well. As a final note, I wanted to just let you know that we do have a PPC service here where we offer clients full-on management of their PPC campaigns, landing pages, tracking, everything you need to get results. But if you're not looking for a PPC agency per se, can't afford it, you're too small at this point, whatever, or just want to start a new venture, what we have at our agency is, instead of just offering services, we also offer turnkey PPC campaigns. We've got results in the foundation repair market. If you wanted to start a foundation repair business where you took a PPC campaign that we've optimized for years and crushes it in that market, applied it in your geographic market where we don't have a client in that market, and then use it to get leads and then outsource the leads to a different foundation repair provider in that geographic market you're in, take 10% of that revenue for the business that's generated, you could have a business doing solely that. Why? Because our campaigns are so good and will beat all the rest of the campaigns in that market that there's margin in it for you to just sit in the middle between Google and the provider and take your 10 or 20% cut. Other people have done this with us, which is why I bring it up. Or we may have actually just gotten the results in your e-commerce market or what have you before, and or just not in your geographic market, where you could use our campaign templates and just hurdle over all the hard work of having to build up the data, the results to get multi-million a year in sales results for your company using PPC, and just lease the templates from us, the templates of the ads, the landing pages, all of it. And respectively, we can tell you about what your results are going to be before you even use it. So for a one-time fee, instead of doing all this work yourself, you could just use what works for that market already, because we've worked in hundreds of markets now. You could just get that from us instead as well. Or you can hire us and we'll give you the template if we've worked in that market, and we'll give you all the management of it as well. But anyway, just want to bring that up since it's such a great opportunity for some of you guys to just get results right away. We've already worked in your market. It would be silly to try to build up everything you need to build up for that market when you could just take what works already. But with that said, I'll wrap it up with that. Hopefully you enjoyed this video.